The Technomancer is out, and it's not getting a whole lot of love. To summarize from different websites, it's either a bad pick or a neither here nor there title. Actually, it's not that bad for me. So, here's my reason why. One of the lowest scores was a 4.9 of 10 from a known game reviewing site. Now, opinions on whether that site's impressions are valid or not will vary. But in terms of the range of the score, or the score that they had or they gave for the game, it's pretty close to what you find in most other review sites. So some comments from users are more raw as opposed to professional sites, and I get, I do get where they're coming from. I mean, let's just put it out there that the Technomancer has a bunch of issues. Now, the adjectives I would use to describe it are clumsy, glitchy, bland, and maybe to add, it does lack character. The thing is, those words I use or those descriptions don't necessarily translate into the whole game. It's true that it's clumsy or glitchy due to the technical issues in movement and combat. It's bland or maybe lacking in character when it comes to the story and the way the story is delivered. But I don't mean that in an absolute sense. So let's break it down into different sections. Let's talk about visuals, sounds, gameplay, story, and overall feel. In terms of visuals, the Technomancer actually looks great. I mean, keep in mind that this is from a PC player's perspective. Now, the landscapes of Mars and the effects in combat look great. Now, the character models generally look okay. I think the problem with the visuals is basically two things. So that would be the movements of the characters. They look clumsy, as I mentioned, and the body movements and facial expressions are very much lacking. I mean, you often see that. The blank stare and the forced half smiles in conversations made me scratch my head because it wasn't on the same level as the rest of the game's visuals. And the dialogue, I just want to add it right here, right now, is that the dialogue that goes with the expressions can be cringeworthy at times. I mean, I wish I could say that they were cliched, but no, there are times when you just want to step away from the game or just laugh at what you're seeing on the screen. The sound, well, the audio used in the game is actually pretty good. Now, the music when entering combat or in certain zones actually lend to what's happening in the game. However, there are two problems with the auditory experience. So, the first one is the transition can be unnerving. Let's say you're moving from one area to the next, or you're moving from not doing anything to combat. Can be, the experience, the transition from the different music or themes can be a bit unnerving. And the voice acting can also be, like I said with some parts of the visuals, it can also be cringeworthy. It's like nobody, I feel, in terms of the way the whole auditory experience was handled, it's like nobody was directing the whole thing. Sometimes it felt like, in terms of the voiceovers, it felt like the scripts were just handed out to voice actors without anyone directing or coordinating their interactions, or the actual, to even consider the actual mood of the situation. So sometimes you'd expect one character to be a little bit more agitated or angry or sad, but it's like he just read the line without any emotion. Now, when that happens, it can really throw you off at times, and it's difficult to get into an RPG when that happens. In terms of gameplay, it's okay. I mean, it's a very RPG game, no doubt about it. I mean, you have stat points to manage, stat points to allocate, and skill trees to work on. Now, that's actually fine, and you do have to make pretty tough choices early on. And that part of the game is actually one of the best parts in it for me. I like the way they've structured the stat points, where you have to choose. I mean, there's not a whole abundance in terms of the points you can allocate to your strength, your agility, your technomancy power, and your something like your constitution, or not a whole lot of points for your different stances and things like that. And I like that fact that they've thought about 3 different ways to sort of optimize your character. I do wish that they could have done so much better in terms of making certain skills or benefits per level gained a little bit more enticing, but I would say that it's okay so far. Overall, the choices you make, the points you allocate translate well into the different gameplay activities that you do in-game, and you do get better at lockpicking, convincing other people, and all other things which include combat, so that's really a big plus for the game. And in gameplay, you also have combat. So I mentioned that it's clumsy, but in terms of the animations, I guess it's done pretty well. I mean, there is an impact when you swing and you shoot at stuff and those shots connect, and that's pretty good, mainly because you do want to feel that there is that connection between you and the damage you do, and of course the damage you take as well. And the slow motion effects add some style to it, but it's nothing spectacular. You've seen it in other games, and you really have to be quick at hitting the right buttons if you don't want to get killed. About souping up your gear, crafting and taking care of your squad will really help you in combat situations. So the clumsiness of combat is already a concern. Better make sure your team's ready and your stats are, or your stat points or your gear is upgraded and ready for fights. So, you know, if you do decide to purchase the Technomancer, or you just recently purchased the Technomancer, I would advise don't go into fights by yourself. It would make it a whole lot easier if you could at least make sure that you have a full squad going into combat. Moving on to story, of course, being an RPG, the story is very important. I haven't finished the game, to be honest, but I get the sense already of where the story is going. However, Spiders should have done a bit better of a job at this part. I mean, it's an RPG, and they should deliver the story so that it is believable and you feel invested in your character. Some points in the story are okay, but the delivery needs work. That if the main story and the subplots were to have value, it was just basically lessened by the presentation. So when I say presentation, that will include the other things I mentioned earlier. Some of the dialogues used, the visuals you see in terms of facial expressions, and all those things. Overall, I'd say that the Technomancer is a title that's very dependent on personal preference. It's not a Last of Us or Witcher 3, where the first few hours of the game already tell you that it has a very great chance of being a great title. For the Technomancer, before I bought the game, I honestly checked out reviews of Spider's previous titles, and they were, as you would expect, mixed bags. However, I did like the premise of the Technomancer and could, basically live with the early footage they showed. I suppose it's easier of a risk on the PC platform, given that it's cheaper, as opposed to the console, where I read that you have to pay full price to get the game. Now, my point is, even though I was interested in it, I made sure to set my expectations based on Spider's previous work, the footage I've seen, and the price point that Spiders was aiming for. To sum it up, the Technomancer is a game with a lot of potential. I mean, it does have a lot of potential, it's just I'm saying that it could have been so much bigger. Unfortunately, it's lacking so much in the area of polish. I mean, either it's a budget issue or a release date pressure issue, or maybe that the developers might need some practice. I don't know. That's really for Spiders or Focus Home to tell us. But like I said, it's not a game that can convince you to be bought outright. It's again, like I said, it's a game that's very dependent on personal preference. Calling it out as garbage on forums and comment boards is like stating the obvious, while saying it's a 9 or 10 of 10 is just nuts or crazy. I mean, it's an in-between game. It will really depend on your personal preference. So, I hope you enjoyed this content, guys. Thank you for listening, and I'll talk to you soon.